All right, I'm back. This is part 2 of the tutorial series. If you've not seen part 1, go ahead and pause this video and open that one up and watch it first. Otherwise, you're not going to know how to move around the screen. The purpose of today's little tutorial is to learn how to make a simple 3D model of a keychain. And I'm going to try to go through some of the key elements, pun only slightly intended, of TinkerCad. Whenever we're going to start a project, we're going to hit Create a New Design. And so I'm going to click that, and it's going to load up, and that's going to take it just a moment here. And as you can see, I have a work plane and my view buttons I'm familiar with, and Funky Rotus. Well, that's not a very good name. So the first thing I do is I click up top where it's procedurally generated the name, which is the top left corner. And let's call it something pretty descriptive, like I'm going to call it Mr. Nendick's Keychain. Cool, Mr. N's Keychain. And I'm going to just hit the Enter key, and now this project is known by my new name. And when I look around, most of TinkerCAD makes sense. There's some tool up here for shape generators or working in Lego or even Minecraft. That's not our goal today. Our goal is over here on the right where there's these building blocks, these primitive shapes. And this is what sets TinkerCAD apart. For the most part, I'd have to draw a two-dimensional shape and mess with what's called an extrusion or a boss extrude or something like that to build up my shape. And here I've already got really basic shapes like blocks and cylinders and holes to build together. And that is going to be the difference. Because I have things that are already existing, it's really easy for me to build up pieces that are relatively simple. Now, if I'm building a really complicated model like a whole robot, it's not going to work in here. But something like a keychain or a spacer or a pen holder, the kinds of things that most students print the first few times, this is an amazingly powerful tool, and it's fast and it's easy, and it's exactly the kind of tool that a middle schooler should be learning. Now, in physics and science and engineering, it turns out your setup is almost more important than the steps. And so I want to make sure that this drawing matches what I expect it to be in real life. And the first thing I need to do then is to find my unit. So I'm actually down here in the corner where it says Edit Grid. And it's defaulting to millimeters, which are wonderful for me as a scientist. But for a student, excuse me, I think they find it much easier to work in inches. So I'm going to set inches. And frankly, I could come over here and choose my exact printer stuff. I'm just going to use default because frankly, we're building something smaller than we need to. So inches, default, update grid. If you look here, my snap grid, I can change how fine the resolution is. And 1/8 of an inch, that's pretty coarse. I'm going to go ahead and choose like a 16th. It doesn't really matter. You can change this later, but I think we're there. Now to start off, I'm going to just take a box here. I'm going to left click it, and I'm just going to drag it into the field. And voila, I could go print a box, just like I'm used to. I've got two different things. I've got these black dots and white dots. The black dot, if I click it and I drag it, is going to change the length of the block in that dimension only. Black one here moves me forward. Black one here would move it that way. Neat. The white dots move two dimensions at once, X and Y, so I can stretch it just like I would be moving a picture in a word editor, right? The top one moves me up and down. Now, this is all really useful. And if you look, I can get a shape pretty close. But that's not really what I want to do. I'm going to click over here on ruler, just going to have my box floating there. And so the beauty of a video is you can pause me and move things around. So make sure you're comfortable moving this box, resizing this box, getting different shapes with this box before you move on. But once you're there and have a box, I don't really care its dimensions, then go ahead and move me again and watch the next part. So if I click this ruler over here, and it's got this little right angle here. It doesn't matter where on my work plane, in honesty. I'm just going to left click somewhere. And you'll see that brought up some dimensions, right? I have my length, my width, and my depth here. Let's say I want my keychain to be, I don't know, I'm looking at my hands here. 1, 2, 3 inches long looks like a pretty good length. You know, let's do 3.25 just because I can. And 3.25 long, I don't know, if I make that like an inch, 0.5 wide, that doesn't look like a keychain, it's too big. Okay, let's try 0.8. Yeah, it looks like a keychain. Neat. So I've got my dimensions. I'm just typing those in and hitting enter. So 3.25 and 0.8. And if I drag this around a minute, you see, whoa, that's a pretty thick keychain there. I need to make this less thick. I don't know. Let's make it 0.2 of an inch clip. 0.2. Okay, that's starting to look like a keychain. And so go ahead and click in your dimensions using the ruler here and see to it that you've got these two dimensions in that way. So 1/8 of an inch deep, 3¼ inches long by 0.2 of an inch tall. There's our keychain. All right, now we need to add in a rounded edge because squares look kind of stupid. I'm not going to lie. Like, that doesn't look really professional. So I've got this roof shape here. I'm dragging in the round roof. So I've just left-clicked it and dragged it in. You'll see if I hover over it, I have 3 axes to rotate it. Now, I'm going to first use this one and flip it up 90 degrees. And I might need to kind of get it up and down until it just is exactly right. And it's a little hard to do the first time. Now, if I try to attach this to the end of my keychain, it's not going to work. So I'm going to go ahead and rotate the side here another 90 degrees. And there, that looks like a keychain, but it's not perfect like that. Uh-oh. I've got a problem, right? But actually, it's pretty easy to fix because if I click on it, I've got dimensions. So let's see. I know that my original part was 0.2 tall, so I'm going to change this to 0.2 tall. That's nice. Oh yeah, I remember. This is 0.8 long. And I don't know. I kind of like how this is looking pretty much already. It looks pretty much like a keychain. Maybe I want to stretch this out a little bit more. Let's make it 0.8 so it's symmetrical. See what that looks like. Yeah, it looks kind of stupid, right? So I'm going to click it. You know what? 0.8 doesn't work. Let's make it 0.6. You know, kind of change it to what you want. You know, I'll be honest. The first time I started CADing things and I learned I could make a part exactly how I wanted it, it changed how I saw the world. And so don't be afraid to deviate a little bit from my drawings here. I'm going to use 0.4. I like kind of the rounded look like that has. Kind of half the radius of this. Nice and symmetrical. Neat. So I've got the part I want, which I chose 0.2 of an inch thick because that's how thick my body is. 0.8 of an inch long, because that's how wide my body is. Those aren't very negotiable. And I chose a length of 0.4 of an inch because I could. Okay. So far I've got 2 shapes here. And you know what? I'm going to hit Control D. And if you look, that didn't look like it did anything. But if I click on this and drag, I made 2 of them. So it's a duplicate. Nice. So again, I clicked it, Control D, and I've got 2 parts. Now, this is a problem. This is not a keychain. This is 3 parts floating in space. Check out what I can do. I'm going to click on one. I'm going to hold down the Shift key and click on the other. So I've got 2 things clicked at once, right? I'm going to come up here to this stack that's called Align, or I can hit the L key. I don't care. And the Align dialog is going to bring up all these things. Okay, I've got an X, my length, and my Z. The first thing I do is I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to click on, I don't know, let's put them on the top. I don't really care which one. This is going to align my Z. So click, and now I know the top and the bottom of this are aligned, that these are at the same level, right? I can do that. And we're going to click the middle line here so they're aligned to each other. Neat. Now, you can see these 2 things are close. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to click on one. I'm just going to use my arrow keys and I'm going to nudge it until it looks like they're touching. Yeah, it looks pretty good. They overlap a little bit, but you know, honestly, who cares? See how we've kind of attached those? And we know no matter which way I'm looking, they look nice and level. I can come in close and excuse the reach here a bit. There we go. We can see this is like a perfectly level view. Well, that's neat. So I'm halfway there. Let's do the same thing over here. If you hit the pause and do it, get there. I'm going to flip this around horizontally. So that's where I want it. I'm going to shift click both things. So I have 2 selection. I'm going to use the align, put them on the same plane, align them to the middle, click on one, and use my arrow keys and attach them. There we go. That's looking pretty solid, but oh no! That's no good. Look at the far end here. Let me kind of get you to a spot where you can see it. Look at my edge here. It's hard to see. You can see that this is offset. There we go. You can see if I zoom over here, no longer aligned. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift-click 1, shift-click 2, shift-click 3. For all 3 parts, right? And now I can align all of them to each other. Well, now they're all in a perfect line. I can do a quick inspection. And everything is beautiful. I have a little keychain, right? Well, I can select everything, which I'm using Command A. Or if I didn't want to do that, I could left click and drag a box around it. Or if I didn't want to do that, I could click 1, click, shift click 2, shift click 3, and that would work. I don't care how you do it, just get all 3 selected. And now hit this button here, which is called Group. What that's going to do is going to combine all of these into one shape. Now I can't see the different parts anymore. I've just made my own custom little thing. And you know what? I'm looking at this, and this looks a little thick to me. You know what? Now it's combined. You know what? I might change this to 0.15, and that's fine because this is all defined as one shape. So now I'm getting close to a keychain, but a keychain needs a way to put on a key, which means it needs a hole. I could use the pre-made one, but I'm actually going to show you the trick here with the cylinder. So I'm going to click a cylinder in anywhere. And let's say I want my hole, you know what, I'm going to dimension it first. Say I want my hole to be, I don't know, 0.35 inches in both dimensions. Why 0.35? I don't know, I just chose it. I'm making the part, it's my part. I've got a cylinder here, and I can switch it over to a hole. So I'm going to left click on it, and it says hole. And you can look, I can change how many sides this has and make it smoother or rougher. I can change other bits of it. You know, it doesn't matter. I've made this. I've got my part clicked. I'm going to shift click the other one so I've got both things highlighted. I'm going to go ahead and use the align tool again and line them up on the same spot. That's pretty cool. But it's not where I want it. So I'm going to use my arrow keys once I clicked on it. I'm going to just shift it around. And I know this is right on the middle. And when I look, it goes through. And if I didn't think it went through, I could click on it and use the dark cone arrow and drag that until I'm like positive this hole goes through. And you can see what I'm doing is I'm going to cut a hole in the area that's got this hatched cylinder through it. So I'm going to select everything, which I use Control A, or you can click and drag or whatever you're going to do to get everything, right? Once I have everything selected, I'm going to hit Group again. And now my custom shape has got a hole inside of a blank keychain. You see how we're building this up piece by piece? So if you're not here, pause it and get here. Now we've got our blank keychain. That's not very exciting. Anyone could go make this. It's got to be 3D printed. So I'm going to come over here to the basic shape side. I'm going to scroll down until I see text. Woo! I'm going to click in here. I've got different fonts. I could change it. I'm going to use a sans font just because I think it looks better. And let's call this a name. I don't know. Let's call this Tim. Let's say I want to write my name. You know what? That looks really stupid. Well, let's try this sans. Ooh, that looks kind of stupid too. You know what? Let's change this over to something a little less funny. My name is a weird name. Let's put, I don't know, my team number on it. 5809. Yeah, that looks nice. Once I found a font I like, I can come in here and, well, that does not look much like a keychain, right? So I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to hold down the Shift button and drag a corner. And the reason why I'm holding on Shift while I drag the corner is it's letting me change things and keep the aspect ratio, the X and the Y ratio, locked to each other. I could just click and drag and get whatever funny shape I wanted, but it's not really what I want. I want this font to stay in the same ratio. Now that looks pretty good to me. I'm going to shift click it so I have both things. I'm going to use my align tool again here. Line that up to, like, I don't know. Oops, I lost it. There and here. Line this up on the middle axis, line this up on the middle axis. Maybe that looks pretty cool to me. That looks like it, and if I come to the side, it's extruded. You know, that looks a little high, so I'm going to drag my height indicator until it just pops off the surface a little bit. So it just prints a couple layers over. Okay, I'm going to select everything and group it. And voila. Just like that, in what, 10 minutes, we've learned how to make a simple little keychain. And you know what? This file's ready. I could export this as this, and I'm not going to explain what I'm doing right now because it's not about it. But this file is actually a 3D printed file. I mean, I could, if I were in my lab right now, get this thing printing on my machine in like under a minute and a half. I can show you what a printer would do with this. So that file we just drew is going to come into this program. There it is. There's our file. As a matter of fact, my printer software says, hey, look at this. I need to print this in 30 layers. And it would do it. It'd do it for me right now. I could go right now, hit this button, and it would be printing. I am so close to done. And what's really cool about this is I was able to design that out of really basic shapes. And sure, a keychain looks simple. But from here, I can use the more complicated tools. So I want to make a dinosaur. Well, I could just add dinosaur parts and start building dinosaurs. Neat. Let's say I want to start working with, I'm not sure, maybe a curve. That's a nice one. I could come in here and start changing my curves. And check it out. Now I'm starting to print these really complicated shapes. But it's all going to start with knowing how to combine pieces and align them to each other, which is exactly what we're doing. So if you have any questions about this, if you get stuck, you can email me your file by clicking up here, Share. And you can share it by downloading locally or over email, which I prefer, and I can help you get there. But you're so close if you get to this point. And honestly, this is what I have my students do the first time. And I've probably had 300 students print keychains like this. And it's really cool to see the little twist they put on it. And so this is a really good starting point. And I hope that helps you and helps you get kind of your feet under you. There's still a world to going towards 3D printing, but at least we have the foundation of the design phase done.